In the quiet moments, that's where I'll find a little room to breathe, leave it all behind. Give me room to breathe, I need some time to heal my heart, to clear my mind. Gonna love myself, yeah, I believe in the power of me. Just give me room to breathe.
Great new day to all my self-care family and friends. Welcome back to another Room to Breathe podcast. I am your host, Life Coach 614, and I am so happy that you made space to be here with us today. Now, before we get into today's episode, just a quick reminder. If you're enjoying the vibes, go ahead and show us some love. Tap the screen, like, comment, but most importantly, share this out with someone who may need a little healing energy today. And if this is your first time here or you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that follow button. Subscribe to our channel so that way you're always tapped in when a new episode drops. I also want to personally invite you to check out our digital home at theselfcareclub.org, where you will find everything from affirmative apparel to motivational merch and a lot of free resources to help nourish your growth, and just to remind you that you are here in a community and you don't have to do it alone. Like I said, we're healing in community, growing one breath, one moment, one day at a time. So give yourself permission to pause, to reflect, and to make space for peace, for growth, but most importantly for you. And remember, if anything in today's episode hits home, go ahead and drop a green heart in the chat. It's our community's way of saying that I'm healing, I'm growing, and I'm showing up for me. Now, let's get ready to breathe, reflect, and grow together. Today, I started thinking about ghosting, right? It's something that you see all over, social media these days where people talk about they've gotten ghosted. And I don't know, have you ever felt like the ghost in your own family story? Like, you're still in the picture, but the energy has shifted. And now, they look through you instead of at you. Like, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally stopped carrying what wasn't yours. It's like you stopped carrying the guilt that wasn't yours to hold. You stopped carrying the silence that kept everybody comfortable but kept you small. You stopped carrying the emotional weight of being the strong one, the forgiving one, the one who, is the Olivia Pope fixer of it all. And, in a family that feeds off of familiarity and, things like that, it just seems like your peace begins to feel like a rebellion. Your boundaries feel like betrayal. Your absence feels like abandonment. But it's really your awakening. It's like you woke up and you stopped showing up for the drama. You stopped answering every call that came with chaos attached to it. You stopped explaining your boundaries, the ones that they never respected anyway. You stopped volunteering for pain just to prove that you're loyal. And now it's like the whispers start, right? They start saying, she thinks she better than us. He done switched up. What's up, Mr. T? Welcome in, bro. Right? They don't come around no more. They think they all that. Right? But here's the truth that they don't tell you. Sometimes that you've changed that they throw at you really just means that you stop tolerating the behavior. See, when you grow in peace, you glow differently. When you heal, you hear things differently, right? Like the jokes hit differently. The shade lands heavier. And suddenly your spirit can't sit comfortably in spaces that used to feel like home. And I think that's when you realize maybe the version of you that they loved was the one that didn't know how to say no. Thank you, Mr. T. Right? So now you're quiet. Not cold, not cruel, just calm. Right? And calm can confuse people who only knew your chaos. And so you're not the ghost. You're just the grounded one, right? The one who chose to rise above the residue. And when they call you distant or detached or different, remember, you didn't disappear. You just detoxed, right? We just cleaned our system out. Because let me tell y'all something. Peace will have you vanishing from everything that violates your spirit. It's not avoidance, it's alignment. It's not rejection, it's redirection. And it really ain't bitterness. It's all about boundaries. And so today we're unpacking what it really means to love your family from a distance. To show up with grace, not guilt. To honor your bloodline without bleeding for it. To understand that healing doesn't always happen in the same house where the hurt was born. Because sometimes the most loving thing that you can do is step back far enough to see things clearly. Not because you stopped loving them, but because you finally started loving you. And so I think it all begins with those unspoken rules that we were raised with. Right? Let's be honest. Most of us didn't grow up learning, emotional intelligence. We learned emotional survival. We learned how to read the room, right? Before we could even read words, we knew how to read a room. We learned how to tiptoe around people's tempers, how to, fold our truth into silence, how to say I'm fine without falling apart. Because somewhere along the way, we were taught that peace in the family meant pretending. Pretending that you weren't hurt. Pretending that you weren't disappointed. Pretending that, the things that broke you didn't happen. And the wildest part of all of this is that's what they called respect. Thank you, Twista. They labeled that as respect. But what it really was repression. We were told that what happens in this house stays in this house. Don't talk back. Don't question your elders. Just pray about it. Right? But nobody ever said, let's talk about what hurt you. Let's unpack that together. Let's break this before it breaks you. No, nobody told us that. So we learned how to bury things alive. Our feelings, our voice, our truth. And we called that love. We called that loyalty. We thought keeping quiet, was keeping the family together. But all that did was keep the dysfunction hidden. You see, those unspoken rules weren't just words. They were emotional contracts. Silent agreements that were, handed down in the family generation, like family heirlooms. They say, don't embarrass us. Don't tell the truth. Don't make other people uncomfortable. Right? Just fly just below the radar. And every single generation before you signed their name in silence. And then there's you. Right? You, the cycle breaker. Thank you. The one who said, but what if we do talk about it? The one who says that was not okay. The one who stopped saying that's just how they are. See, you're not the problem. You're the pattern interrupt. Right? You are the gentle disruptor. And that makes people uncomfortable because healing looks like rebellion to those who are still worshiping dysfunction. And so because you stopped playing the role that they wrote. They wrote for you in a story that never let you be real. You stopped performing peace and you actually started pursuing peace. You started asking questions that shook the family table. And for that, they call you too sensitive, too emotional. You being too much, you doing too much. But that's not too much. You're just the first one who had the courage to say, this ends with me. And that's what generational ghosting really is, right? It's not about walking away from your family, but it's about walking away from the emotional scripts that kept you, small within the family. You're not dishonoring your roots. You're replanting them in truth. You're simply saying, if it costs me my peace, my voice, my sanity, then that's not love. It's control. So if it is costing me any of those things, it's too expensive. I don't want it. And from that moment on, you stop being the family's emotional glue and you become the one who gave everybody else in the family permission to heal. Because when one person breaks the silence, the whole bloodline starts to breathe differently. And you can break cycles without breaking connection. You can love someone deeply and still need distance to do it safely. It's not an either or, it's both. And you can love them and still, leave the room when they start repeating their old habits, their old patterns. You can honor your elders and still refuse to inherit their emotional chaos. You can forgive and still protect yourself. Because breaking cycles doesn't mean that, you're breaking the connection. It just simply means that you're redefining it. I think for so long we were taught that love meant endurance, right? That we got to stick it out. Don't give up on the family. Family is all you got, right? But nobody said what to do when family becomes the very thing that is draining your peace. So we, over the years, have learned to internalize that message that, if I step back, I'm cold. If I speak up, I'm disrespectful. If I protect my peace, I'm the problem. But when you start healing, you'll hear the whispers that says you can love them without losing you. Because honestly, breaking the cycle is not rebellion. It is restoration. You're trying to build something healthier, not holier than thou, right? You're just simply saying, I love you, but I can't love you in the same way that breaks me. And I think that honestly, that's the hardest part. Realizing that the distance you need might disappoint how they feel. And they won't always understand that your no is not rejection, that it's your realignment. You're not saying I don't care. You're just simply saying I can't carry this anymore. This hurt, this pain, this hatred, this dysfunction. I can't bloom here, right? It's like when you set your boundaries, you're not building walls, you're creating windows. Windows where honesty can breathe, where peace can enter, right? Windows that let the light in without letting the storm destroy the house again. You can still send love. You can still check in. You can still pray for them. You can still show up. But now it's on your terms, right? And that's not selfish. That's sustainable. Because, here's the thing about breaking generational cycles. It's not loud. It's just layered. Okay? It's not about the dramatic cutoffs or the social media call outs. You don't have to make an announcement. You don't have to stand from the highest mountaintop and scream it. It's just a quiet decision made in a private moment. It's saying, I'm not going to argue like that anymore. I'm not going to parent from pain. I'm not going to guilt trip my children into love. I'm not going to use silence as a punishment. You're learning how to relate from love, not from those open wounds. So when people say you don't come around like you used to, you just smile and say, well, I'm still here, just not in that way. Right? Just not the same way. Because sometimes the cycle that you break isn't, a family tradition. It's a family trauma. And the moment you choose healing over habit, you'll start building, a connection that's rooted in truth, not tension. Breaking the cycle isn't the end of the story. It's just the beginning of a better one. So sometimes you got to look in that family mirror, right? Because family will show you parts of yourself that you thought you healed or you didn't even know existed. You ever notice how being around family can trigger emotions that you haven't felt in years? You walk through the door and suddenly you're not grown, right? You're not that grown, evolved version of yourself anymore. You're the little girl who had to prove her worth all over again. You're the quiet one who swallowed her feelings. You're the fixer who tried to keep everybody else from falling apart. That's the mirror. Our family reflects our unhealed parts like nothing else. Your patience, your pain, your patterns are all exposed in real time the moment you enter the room. And sometimes the people who hurt you are the very ones who help you see what you still need to tend to. That's why healing isn't just about forgiveness. It's also about awareness. It's about noticing when those old wounds show back up. When your body tenses at a familiar tone. When you shrink instead of speaking. Welcome in, Arthur. When you laugh at something that actually hurt you, that cut deep. You start to realize, hold on, this ain't about them anymore. It's about what being around them wakes up in me. Right? And that's where the real work begins. Welcome in, Miss Sherry. Right? The kind that doesn't happen in a confrontation, but in a quiet reflection. Because sometimes your family doesn't change. You do. Right? And that's where the tension lives. See, the family mirror doesn't lie. It'll show you your mother's survival habits in your own relationship. It'll show you your father's silence in the way that you avoid confrontation. It'll show you your grandmother's strength in the way you keep pushing even when you're tired. It'll show you the beauty and the burden of your lineage. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. But that's the gift, right? Awareness gives you a choice. It gives you power. It gives you the ability to say, that trait stops here. You're not obligated to repeat what broke you just because it's familiar. You can love your mother and still choose to mother differently. You can respect your father and still speak louder than his silence did. You can honor your ancestors and still heal what they never got to name. You don't have to keep reenacting the same story, for it to count as loyalty. Sometimes I think that the greatest way to honor your family is to rewrite the ending. change the story. So when that mirror starts reflecting things that you don't want to see, don't run from it. Look deeper. Ask yourself, is this, reflection of who I was or a reminder of who I'm becoming? Is this who I was or is this who I'm becoming? Because every family mirror moment is an invitation for you to grow, to ground, to grace yourself, right? Through it. Welcome in, HR. Thank you so much. You are not supposed to come out of it perfect. You're supposed to come out of it present, right? The reflection hurts, but the recognition in that heals. Okay? And when you start healing what you see, you stop projecting what you feel. That's how generational peace begins. Not when they change. Welcome in, Lola. Right? Not when they change, but when you stop reflecting the pain and start reflecting the purpose. So again, it is okay to love them from a distance. I think that, this one is for all the people who had to love from the sidelines, right? The ones who had to learn that sometimes the most peaceful love is the kind that doesn't require proximity. Sometimes you just got to love people, from where it's safe for you, not just from where it's comfortable for them. And I don't think we talk about that enough, right? That kind of love. The kind of love that still prays for you, but won't pick up the phone every time you call. The kind that still wishes you well, but won't walk back into the chaos to prove it. Thank you. That's the quiet, grown-up kind of love, right? The healed kind of love. It's the kind that says, I still love you. I just can't do dysfunction with you anymore. I still care, but I can't keep showing up in pain. I still see you, but for once, I'm finally seeing me too. You see, distance doesn't always mean disconnection, right? It's not the absence of love, but it is the abundance of wisdom. It's saying, I know what this costs me, and I'm no longer willing to pay with my peace. Because sometimes being close to certain people means that you have to abandon yourself, right? You start watching your tone. You start filtering your truth, watering things down, editing your joy. And we call that keeping the peace. But peace that requires pretending isn't peace at all. It's just performance. Welcome in, Sweet Pea. Loving from a distance means you've learned how to hold both compassion and clarity, forgiveness and firmness, empathy and an exit plan. It's realizing that you don't have to sit at every table that you were invited to. Some connections need less conversation and more contemplation. Less visits, more vision, right? Less trying to fix it and more choosing to just flow with it. And I know that this is something that hurts, right? Because you still want the relationship. You still crave the feeling of family. You still wish that it could be different. But again, that's when the healing will whisper. Don't confuse closeness with connection. Because sometimes the more you love yourself, the less you can tolerate the things that used to be normal. That's when you learn to love from a higher ground. You love through prayer, not proximity. You love through acceptance, not access. You love through grace, not guilt. And you stop explaining your boundaries to people who are committed to misunderstanding them. It's like you're rationalizing with the most irrational people. That's, that kind of love is mature. Welcome in, Ezra. Right? It's not fueled by bitterness. It's filtered through balance. You don't need revenge. You just need rest. You don't want validation. You want ventilation. You want room to breathe. You just want to breathe. And that's okay. Because some love stories aren't meant to be rewritten. They're just meant to be released, right? Sometimes the release is the redemption. So if you've been loving from a distance lately, don't let anybody shame you for that. Thank you. Distance doesn't mean that you stopped loving. It just means that you finally started loving you. Right? And so sometimes it's necessary for us to detox, right? Let's talk about the detox phase, because nobody warned you that, healing from your family can feel like withdrawal. When you finally start saying no, when you stop over explaining, when you no longer rush to fix or save, your body, your mind, your soul goes through something, some kind of shaking. It's like your spirit is trying to find its footing in life where it no longer runs on chaos and codependency. That's, we've got to understand that dysfunction has a rhythm. It's familiar. It's predictable. We spent years learning how to dance to that beat, right? The dance steps to chaos, the guilt trip, the gaslight, the go along to get along. So when you step off the dance floor, that silence can all of a sudden feel deafening. You'll catch yourself reaching for the phone out of habit, checking in on people who ain't never checked in on you. You feel that pull, that emotional muscle memory, right? That says they might need me. I need to be available. Thank you so much. Welcome in. Just me, Lisa. Thank you for the follow. Right? So you start thinking in your mind, they might need me. But what if what you're really feeling is the absence of the things that used to distract you? And here's the hard truth. You'll start missing people who hurt you. I know it sounds crazy, right? But when you're healing, you start missing the people who hurt you. The places that drained you. Welcome in, butterfly. Right? And it's not because you want to go back, but it's because the chaos was your comfort zone. You're welcome. That's what detoxing does, right? It exposes what you got used to while you were surviving. It brings up everything you numbed just to stay connected to them. And so in this detox, you're going to cry more, right? You might question if you're the problem. You might even feel guilty for the peace that you've been praying for. But that's just your body's way of recalibrating. That's your nervous system learning that calm doesn't mean danger. That stillness doesn't mean punishment. That silence isn't rejection. It is simply recovery. You're unlearning the lie that love has to hurt to feel real. You're detoxing from the obligation dressed up as devotion. From manipulation that has been masquerading for years as concern. From the guilt packaged as family values. And yeah, detoxing comes with symptoms, right? Everything has a side effect, right? So with detox, in detoxing, you'll feel lonely before you feel liberated. You'll feel empty before you feel expanded. But you have to let those emotions pass through you, so that way they don't park inside of you. Because what's leaving is what can't stay, right? It cannot stay in the version of you that is healing. You are shedding parts of yourself that learn to settle for scraps of love. You're releasing the fear that you'll be forgotten if you stop being the fixer. You're purging every single piece of peace you had to perform to keep the family happy. And that's holy work. Yeah, it's messy, it's maddening, but it is medicine. So if you are currently feeling that ache, that in between, I know I'm growing, but this still hurts type of phase, know that that's exactly what healing feels like in motion. You didn't lose your family. You're just losing the tolerance for the toxicity. You didn't walk away because you hate them. You walked away because you finally love you enough to stop bleeding to keep them comfortable. This is the detox. It's temporary. It's tender, right? But it's transforming you into someone that you've never had the freedom to be. And so for anyone who feels like they're in that season, I just want you to keep breathing through it. Because when the residue clears, what's left is clarity and peace, right? And the best kind of high that you will ever experience. I'm telling you, peace feels amazing. I tell everybody, come on over here. It's nice over here. But I mean, just like with anything else, we have obstacles to overcome, right? If we could just snap our fingers and be healed, honey, wouldn't we all? But, you know, we have to go through things. In order to get to it, we got to go through it. It's that bear hunt, right? We can't go around it. We can't go under it. We can't go over it. We got to go through it. And so in the going through it, there's also going to be this guilt trap, right? At some point in your journey, you're going to come up on the guilt trap. So let's go ahead and talk about that quiet, heavy emotion that sneaks in when you finally start choosing yourself, right? Welcome in, Tamika. When you finally start putting you first, what happens? You feel the guilt, right? Not the kind that comes from doing something wrong, but the kind that comes from doing something different. Because when you're the first in your family to set boundaries, to stop overgiving, to stop letting guilt guide your generosity, it can start to feel like betrayal. They'll hit you with all the phrases designed to pull you back into your old patterns. They'll tell you, but honey, that's your mama. You can't walk away from her. You know they didn't mean it like that. You only get one family. Or my favorite, don't be forgetting where you came from, right? And before you know it, you're sitting in your car, heart racing, wondering if you're protecting your peace, if that makes you a bad person. So let me say this slowly. Love doesn't require self-abandonment. And guilt is not the same thing as responsibility. See, guilt has a sneaky way of making you feel like you owe people your exhaustion. Like you can't have peace unless everyone else approves of it. Like saying no somehow makes you heartless. But the truth of the matter is, guilt is often the ghost of your old role trying to haunt your new boundaries. That guilt is, it's that inner voice that whispers, if I don't show up, everything's going to fall apart. If I rest, I'm lazy. If I say no, they'll think I don't care. But none of that is true. You've just been conditioned to confuse love with labor, to measure your worth by how much weight you can carry. You learn to mistake self-sacrifice for strength, to think that being needed was the same thing as being loved. If they need me, they gotta love me. That's love. But healing teaches you different. It says you're not selfish, you're just self-aware. You've learned that pouring from an empty cup doesn't make you a hero, it makes you hollow. And sometimes, that guilt will show up right when you're doing your best. Suddenly, you'll feel bad for resting. You'll feel bad for missing a call. You feel bad for not showing up to a family event that you knew was going to drain you. But here's a reframe for you. That's not guilt. That is growth meeting resistance. That is your nervous system adjusting to a life that no longer requires constant people pleasing. You can still honor your family without overextending yourself. You can still love them without losing your boundaries. You can be grateful for where you came from while refusing to repeat the parts of it that almost destroyed you. So when guilt tries to creep in and whisper, you've changed, just smile and say, yes, and thank God that I did. Right? Because, honey, that life almost took me out. All it gave me was depression, anxiety. So, yes, I did change, and thank God I did. You didn't abandon your family. You just stopped abandoning yourself. And so that doesn't make you heartless. It just means that you're healing. So the next time somebody tries to make you feel guilty for your growth, I want you to remember that the only people who get offended by your boundaries are the ones who benefited from you not having them. So release that guilt, keep the grace, and remind yourself that peace does not require permission. And I don't think we talk about the grief that comes with healing enough. Right? Because choosing peace feels powerful, but it definitely feels lonely sometimes, like you're mourning something. And so when you start to set your boundaries, when you start to distance yourself, you'll miss them. Like I said, even the people who hurt you, you'll miss them. Even the ones who never said they were sorry to you. Because grief doesn't only come from what died, it comes from what could have been. You start grieving parents who couldn't protect you, the siblings who didn't understand you, right? The childhood that taught you survival instead of softness. You'll grieve the version of you who tried so hard to keep the family together, even when it was tearing you apart. And most people won't admit that you can love people deeply and still accept that they're not healthy for your spirit. You can miss their presence and still need the distance. You can wish things were different while knowing that they never will be. That's grief. Not the dramatic kind, but the quiet kind that still hums beneath your healing. The kind that shows up when you start scrolling through old pictures, right? When Facebook pull up and show you on this day, you'll remember the laughter that came before the pain. The kind that hits you at the holidays when your seat at the table stays empty on purpose. And maybe nobody else will get it, but that doesn't mean that your grief is less sacred. Because when you start healing, you realize you're not just breaking generational curses, you're also breaking emotional attachments. You're losing what you once thought was love, only to find out that it was dependency, duty, or denial. And that's hard, right? I never said that healing wasn't hard. Sometimes it hurts, but for all the good reasons. You're going to cry about people who still breathe. You'll mourn relationships that never ended cleanly, just quietly. You just disappeared. But every single tear that falls in that season is cleansing something that kept you bound, right? You'll start to understand that peace costs, and the price is often people. But the grief is proof that you cared. It's proof that you tried. It's proof that you're human enough to hurt and healed enough to not go back. That's all I've ever asked for in my healing journey. I want to be human enough to hurt, but healed enough to not go back. Because now I know better, so I have no choice but to do better. Because I can't unsee it, right? I can't unfeel that hurt and that pain. And I have to admit, you know what? Ever since I've been gone, I feel a lot better. I feel happier. So this is a season that you don't want to rush through. And don't shame yourself for, still feeling the pull. You're not weak for missing them. You're real for admitting that you do. Because grief is a part of growth. It means you love them enough to wish that things could be differently, but you love you enough to stop pretending that they will be. And, maybe that's the most compassionate act of all, to release them with love instead of resentment. To say, I forgive you, but I'm freeing me. Because healing doesn't erase the memories, it just reframes them. You stop asking, why did they do that to me? And you start realizing they couldn't give you what they never received. Sometimes we have this expectation on people to do something or to be something that they've never saw before. And so from that understanding, you start to find peace in the pain. Not because it didn't happen. Yeah. Not because it didn't happen, but because you don't have to carry it anymore. And so that's why it's so important for us to say, you know what? Even through all of this healing, even through all of this forgiveness, maybe it's time that I forgive myself for not knowing better, for not doing better. Maybe it's time that I forgive myself and I release all the things that no longer serve me. So again, if you're in that in between where your heart still aches, but your spirit feels lighter, know that that is sacred ground. That's the space between breaking and becoming. It's something that we all have to go through, because that's the space where the grief starts to turn to grace. And I promise you, one day you are going to look back and you're going to realize that letting go didn't destroy you. It simply delivered you. It took you from your breaking and welcomed you into your becoming. And so let's talk about, what happens after the grief, right? That quiet but powerful moment where you realize that you don't have to chase family to create it. Because healing doesn't just help you release people, It helps you redefine what family really means to you. For so long, we've been taught that family is strictly blood, right? That DNA determines devotion. That people who share your last name are automatically your safe space. But healing teaches you something different. We know that, blood might make you related, but behavior sometimes determines if you're really family. And sometimes the people who share your history can't handle your healing story. It's not always, out of malice. Sometimes they're just mismatched. You're growing in places they're not ready to see. You're speaking a language that their pain has never learned to translate. You're setting boundaries in a household that has called silence survival for years. And it's okay. You don't have to drag everybody into your deliverance. Everybody ain't meant to go where God is calling you. You can love them and still let God deal with, what they can't understand. Family, and I'm talking about real family, isn't always found in your family tree. Sometimes it's in the branches that you have to grow yourself. Right? It's the ones who show up for you without an agenda. The ones who listen and pour back into you. And they clap for your peace like it's their own. That's your chosen family. The one who matches your energy without draining it. Who can hold space for your truth without making it all about their triggers. Who don't demand performance. They just invite your presence because they know that your presence is a gift. That's what I call a soul family, right? People who might not share your genetics, but will always share your growth. They understand that peace is the new bloodline. Because when you start healing, you stop asking, who am I to them? And you start asking yourself, who are they to my peace? You stop begging for a seat at tables that feed insecurities, and you start building new ones. Right? Tables where accountability and honesty and emotional safety are the main course. You stop trying to earn love through effort, and you start allowing love to flow with ease. And you realize that you don't have to shrink to fit into the spaces that you've already outgrown. You don't have to apologize for the distance that you need and require to breathe. You don't have to explain your evolution to people who are committed to their version of you. You can love your blood family and still build your chosen one. Because sometimes the people you meet later in life become the family that your spirit has been waiting for all along. The ones who remind you that home isn't just a place, it's a feeling. It's peace in your body. It is safety in your conversations. It is love without leverage. It is laughter that doesn't come from tension. And if you haven't found that kind of family yet, I don't want you to lose hope, because as you heal, right, you will attract people who see the real you. So don't chase. Continue healing and attract. Attract the people who see the real you, not the role that you used to play. But, you'll attract the ones who don't guilt you for your boundaries. Welcome in, Spark Motive. They won't guilt you for your boundaries, but they'll guard them right next to you. They'll be the ones who remind you that you're not hard to love. You were just loving people who weren't ready to receive. That's what redefining family looks like. It's creating a community that mirrors your healing. It's letting love be a choice, not a chore. It's realizing that the family that you came from and the family that you're called to create can both exist, even if they don't look the same. Because family isn't just who raised you, it's also who rises with you. Thank you. So yeah, there comes a point where you have to just tell them, I didn't disappear. I just detoxed. You didn't ghost your family. You didn't stop loving them. You stopped letting them gaslight you. You stopped letting them guilt you into, their dysfunction. There's a difference between abandonment and alignment. And when you begin healing, you're choosing alignment. You're not going silent because you're shady, right? You're going silent because peace doesn't need to prove itself. You're not pulling away to punish them. You're pulling away to protect you. And so as you continue to heal, you'll stop performing, stop fixing, stop folding yourself into fragments just to fit in with dysfunction. And yeah, they'll call it distance, but we know at the end of the day, that is deliverance. Because once you start healing, your boundaries start speaking louder than your explanations. You start realizing that not everyone deserves front row access to your peace. You start realizing that love without limits is like a spiritual leakage. So I guess in a sense, yeah, we disappeared, right? I disappeared from chaos, from confusion, from conversations that only circled the same pain. I disappeared from dysfunction that disguised itself as family loyalty. I disappeared from rooms that celebrated my silence more than my self-awareness. But here's the plot twist. When you disappear, you didn't vanish into thin air. You just simply evolved into stillness. You rose into clarity. You become the version of yourself that the younger self prayed for. That's peaceful. You're no longer chasing closure from people who thrive from confusion. No longer proving your worth to people who benefited, from your doubt, from you questioning yourself. I know for me, I'm no longer waiting for validation from a bloodline that never learned how to speak the language of accountability. I don't want to claim you, and I don't need you to claim me. As you heal, you'll learn to bless them and block their patterns. To love them and leave what limits you. To forgive them and free yourself. So the next time somebody tells you you've changed, again, I want you to just smile and say, no, I'm just no longer negotiating my peace. I didn't disappear. I just detoxed. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing more divine than that. So again, family, healing isn't clean. It's not pretty. It is messy. It is courageous, right? It's messy conversations, misunderstood intentions, sacred separations. But through it all, you keep growing. You keep becoming. You keep choosing peace even when it's painful. So this week, I want you to reflect on this. Ask yourself, what relationships am I still maintaining out of guilt instead of grace? What does peace look like for me? Not for them, but for me. Who am I becoming now that I'm no longer performing for this family? At the end of the day, the truth is You don't owe anyone an explanation for evolving. Your growth is your gratitude. Your distance is your discipline. And your peace is your prayer in motion. Now, before we part ways, let me leave you all with a little love and light. As always, I encourage you to keep breathing through the highs, the lows, and every moment in between. I want you to keep choosing peace, even if it feels out of reach. And to know that here at the Self-Care Club, you will always be seen, always valued, and always supported. So don't be afraid to take up space, speak your truth, and make a little room for you to breathe. I love each and every one of you to life, and I am praying that your day is not just amazing, but aligned, intentional, and yes, on purpose, filled with purpose. This has been another Room to Breathe podcast, and I look forward to connecting with you all again soon. Thank you.